I'm sorry, 29B. No,
That's in there too.
29B3, B2, right? 29B2.
You can't keep up.
Yes, 29B2. Okay. So the Mishnah says as follows: Yom Tov Shachal Rosh Hashanah. Yom Tov Shal Rosh Hashanah. Shachal Lihiyos B'Shabbos. What are we talking about? We're talking about a Yom Tov, right? We're talking about Rosh Hashanah that falls out, right? Rosh Hashanah is 2 days. The first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. When the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, what's the issue? What about shofar? Right? Is there an issue of shofar on Shabbos? So we all know there is an issue of shofar on Shabbos, meaning that when the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, we don't blow shofar. Was it always that way? Actually not. No. Let's see. Yom Tov Shachali, Yom Tov Shal Rosh Hashanah. What?
I remember this from a few years ago. Oh, we can't. I'm here too long.
It's a repeat. No, we're going to just go back to the
We learned this.
I'm sure we might have learned. This has probably come up many times.
Shabbos Shuvah Rosh.
Right, this year, Shabbos.
Okay. Okay. Right.
We see it. I know about this stuff.
Right. So Yom Tov Shal Rosh Hashanah Shachalios B'Shabbos. The Mikdash in the Beis Hamikdash Hayu Tokin. They would blow the shofar. Right in the Beis Hamikdash, they would blow the shofar. Aval lo b'Medina, but not outside of the Beis Hamikdash. We'll have to figure out exactly what that means. In other words, when it says b'Mikdash, is it referring to the building of the Beis Hamikdash, and then anything outside the actual building of the Beis Hamikdash itself is considered the Medina? Or when we say Beis Hamikdash, are we referring to Jerusalem, which is more of a, it was the home of the Beis Hamikdash, a more extended area, and then anything outside of Jerusalem is the Medina. We'll talk about those, but clearly there's a demarcation. In the Mikdash, they blew the shofar, and outside of the Mikdash, they did not blow the shofar. Mishachara Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, right? Which Beis Hamikdash are we talking about here? Talking about the second Beis Hamikdash. When the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Hiskin Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai sheyihiyu tokin b'chol makom sheyesh bo bezdin. So when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, you remember the whole story about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, his Talmidim pretended he was dead, and they snuck him out of the besieged Jerusalem in a casket. And once he was outside, he got out of the casket and he went to Vespasian and he said, Shalom Alecha, Caesar, whatever he called him, the Caesar, whole thing. And ultimately, Vespasian granted him a request, and his request was, give me Yavne and its scholars. So Yavne became the center of Jewish life following the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai established Sheyu Tokin b'chol makom sheyesh bo bezdin, that in any city that there was a bezdin, you could sound the shofar on Shabbos, Rosh Hashanah, or on Rosh Hashanah Shabbos. You could sound the shofar, right? Now, why would Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai have instituted such a takana? Wanted to keep the tradition alive. In other words, there is no Beis Hamikdash, right? We're bereft of a Beis Hamikdash. So we institute many practices which are Zecher LeMikdash. So for instance, in your Siddharim, in our Siddharim, what do? Zecher LeMikdash Kehillel, right? We make a sandwich of matzah and maror, and we eat it. And before we eat it, we say Zecher LeMikdash Kehillel. Right, this is what Hillel used to do in the times when there was a Beis Hamikdash, or this was what used to be done in the times when there was a Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai instituted in any place where there was a bezdin. What size bezdin are we talking about? So we know bezdin comes in 3 sizes, right? Little bear, right?
Mama bear.
What was the? Is that what it was?
The grande, and
Little bear, pop bear, mama.
3 sizes. Small is a bezdin of 3 people, right? we think of a bezdin of 3 people. That's our usual thought of a bezdin of 3 people. And generally, when we think of a bezdin of 3 people, we're thinking about Erev Rosh Hashanah. We're thinking about Hataras Nidarim, right? How we stand before a bezdin of 3 people and we say, all the promises that I made, right? All of these promises that I made, they're not really, right? They're not really promises, right? All these promises that I made are not promises, and therefore what? And therefore, forgive me. But let's say that I had a monetary claim against someone, right? I claimed that I lent $50,000 to somebody, and they claim, no, it's not true. You only lent me $10,000. So what do I do with this? I go to Bezdin. How many people of that Bezdin? 3? No, 3. Only 3 people of that Bezdin. It's a monetary matter. Whenever there's monetary matters, it's 3 people. Let's say I have an issue with somebody over a tort, right? In other words, somebody's car, somebody backed their car into my car, into my house, right? So where do I get that case adjudicated? In front of a bezdin of 3, right? The opening Mishnah Masechah Sanhedrin tells us all these things in a bezdin of 3. That's the small bezdin. There's a medium-sized bezdin. What's the medium-sized bezdin? 23. The medium-sized bezdin is 23. What does the medium-sized bezdin deal with? No, matters of life and death, right? The medium-sized bezdin deals with anything where there could potentially be a death sentence. That's the medium-sized bezdin. So whatever it is, let's say Chilul Shabbos, somebody's accused of being Mechal Shabbos, or somebody's accused of blasphemy, whatever it is where there is a death penalty associated with it, the bezdin of 23 has to deal with that particular case.
Who has the right to be in the bezdin? What are the qualifications?
You don't qualify.
I'm barely qualified to sit here.
The qualifications to be in a bezdin generally are that you have to be a musmach. In other words, you had to have a certain authority passed down from one generation to the next. That's the idea. That's what a musmach is. You know, somebody who passed down, somebody for whom that authority was passed down from one generation to the next. Obviously you had to be competent. You know, they didn't put somebody as a member of Bezdin who wasn't competent. You needed to know the halachos. You know, however you played basketball, it wasn't relevant, but you needed those particular things. Okay, so that's the medium-sized Bezdin, 23. Then there's the large Bezdin, right? Right? And you do numbers for a living, right? The large Bezdin, right? The large Bezdin is 71. That's known as the Sanhedrin, right? The Bezdin of 71 is known as the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin used to meet, right? The Sanhedrin also dealt with capital cases, but RoshHashanavideo that involved. Where'd you get that from?
I heard it.
Now, so interesting. There's by the way, there is a fascinating history to what happened to the Sanhedrin. Where did the Sanhedrin go?
Yeah.
Well, the Sanhedrin went to Yavna, and then what happened to it?
Other places too.
Didn't it eventually dissolve because nobody could agree on who the?
I think the Byzantines made difficult for the Sanhedrin.
So actually, what?
They ran out of smicha.
Well, they did run out of smicha because smicha became outlawed, right? And when smicha became outlawed, yes, it's true, they ran out of smicha, all right? But to get to that point is interesting that what happened to the Bezdin. So it's true, the Bezdin moved to different locations. The last decision of the Sanhedrin, I believe, in the 363, 365 of the Common Era, and that was the last decision of the Bezdin was the calendar decision. That was the last decision. That was the last Hillel the Third.
2 days a year. That's why
that was Hillel the Third.
Second.
That was the last decision of the Bezdin, and that decision was taken. The Bezdin met in secret.
That's so pretty traumatic.
So obviously, in accordance with granting this wish to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the Sanhedrin was allowed to continue to function, right? So the Sanhedrin continued to function after the Chorban Bayesheni, went to Yavne, went to a number of other places, moved to a number of different places, and literally what killed the Sanhedrin was the succession of Roman emperors. Right, there were a number of, remember, Christian and actually the rise of Christianity. Okay, well, how are those two connected? So any of you go to the lecture with Rabbi Hoffman on Sunday?
Yeah,
Sunday. I don't know if I mentioned it, but there was an effort by one of the Roman emperors to, right?
Yeah.
All right. What was his name?
Was that perhaps Constantine? Maybe you're right. Maybe it was-
I think it was Justinian the Apostate or something.
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
right. That's what it was. You're right.
Right. That's what they called him. He was the last non-Christian Roman emperor, and as Christianity was rising, he was trying to combat the rise of Christianity.
Was he a pagan? The pagan.
He was a pagan. He was a pagan. So he was trying to combat the rise of Christianity, and he thought that one of the ways of doing that, one of the ways of sticking it to the who better, right? Who better to stick it to the growing Christian?
We didn't have enough people.
Right? Then I'll give permission to build the base of English. So the Jews actually started into that effort. I think it was I don't remember exactly what year it was that he made that decree. Where he said that you can build the base of English. I think in 363, for some reason that's sticking in my head. And the same year, everything stopped. Everything came crashing down. Why? So it's recorded, not in our sources, but recorded that there were fireballs that prevented the building of the base of English. So exactly what that means seems to be that there was an earthquake in Jerusalem at the time, and it was the earthquake. Others say it was sabotage. Some say it was the Christian theologians said it was divine punishment. All of these ideas, but that effort to rebuild the base of English floundered, right? And then subsequently, all of the other or the subsequent Roman emperors were Christians, as Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. And ultimately, and I don't remember what his name was, he ended in an Ennius, whatever his name was, outlawed smicha, right? Outlawed smicha. And as a result, and anyone who was found to be giving smicha would be killed, and their entire town would be razed. R-A-Z-E-D. Right? Their entire town would be razed. That itself, and the reason he did this was in other words, if the Jews were allowed to give smicha, so then to have this structure, Sanhedrin, the right. Very last thing to say about was establishing that as inaccurate as it is. Like smicha for LA, just for like right. So, right? It's, for several attempts to reenact. Jews agree. And that will restart.
Majority not gonna matter.
That will,
Close, didn't he?
Yeah.
He came close.
Right.
Okay.
You know, right. Okay, so back to our Mishnah. So Hiskin Rabbi Yochanan on Rosh Hashanah the Fel Kam Sheyesh Bo Bezdin. We don't know why that was we know that he wanted to do that in order to maintain some sense of what happened in the days when there was a Beis Hamikdash. But we don't know anything more than like what's the connection between Bezdin and that.
Well, is it, I told you a theory, you don't, let's say Bezdin here referred to Sanhedrin. Okay, and Sanhedrin decides when is Rosh Chodesh, not Rosh Chodesh. Outside of that area of the Sanhedrin, you wouldn't know when is exactly Rosh Hashanah. So by Shabbos, it's a summer. But if you live in the Chodeshes, there's no suffix anymore, and then you're entitled to blow shofar on Shabbos Rosh Hashanah. That was the theory.
Right.
And
Well, let's see if we can make reference to that as we continue on. Okay. So I'm a Rebbe Elazar. So Rebbe Elazar has a little bit of a different interpretation. What does Rebbe Elazar say? Lo hiskin Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai ela biyavna. In other words, what did Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai do when he established that the shofar can be blown on Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos? Only in Yavna Bilva. So Amrulo, so they said to Rabbi Elazar, Echad Yavna v'Echad Kol Makom Sheyesh Bo Bezdin. Right? What, why specifically
Because
Yavna?
was the success of Yerushalayim. So
that's Sanhedrin.
right. So it makes.
This statement of Echad Yavna v'Echad Kol Makom Sheyesh Bo Bezdin is not clear to us from the Mishnah. In other words, what are they responding to him? He said, Rabbi Elazar came along and said, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai only made the decree in Yavne. They said to him, listen, Yavne is like every other place. Any other place that there's a Bezdin, Yavne is like any other place with a Bezdin. Exactly what they were saying to him, the Gemara is going to discuss. So let's continue on. We'll get to the Gemara. We'll try to understand this a little bit better. The Ode, and additionally, Zos Haisai Yerushalayim Yisera al Yavne. This is what Jerusalem has over Yah. V'shoma'as u'krovav v'yachola lavo tokin u'biyavna lo hayu tokin ela bebezdin bilvad. In other words, what did the city of Jerusalem, when the Beis Hamikdash existed, what did the city of Jerusalem have that subsequently Yavne did not have? No, specifically regarding this matter of Tkiyah Shofar, right? Specifically regarding this matter of Tkiyah Shofar. So it used to be in the days of the Beis Hamikdash, not only did they blow shofar in Jerusalem when Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbos, but any place, Kol Ir, any of the surrounding areas of Jerusalem, Shehiroa, that's close enough to see Jerusalem, Vishoma'as, and close enough to hear what's going on in Jerusalem, Ukrova v'yachola lavo, and is able to come. Right? They're close enough to be able to come to Jerusalem. So token, what do we say about those places? You can blow it in those places. So what would that be today? That would be like a ramot, right? Like different neighborhoods where it could be like a ramot. Or it could be even
German colony.
Yeah, right. It could be other areas like that. Sanhedria, I guess. Okay. Does this sound familiar to anything? Megillah. What's different about Jerusalem when it comes to Megillah?
Oh, different.
When do they read in Jerusalem? In Jerusalem, they read on the 15th of the month. We read on the 14th of the month. They read on the 15th of the month. They read on what we call Shushan Purim. And in fact, if you're in Israel, you can have Purim for 2 days. It's Kavaldik, right? You go outside of Jerusalem for the first day of Purim. You should come back to Jerusalem for the second day.
That's the only time they want to do the Yom Tov.
Very nice. Okay.
All the tough ones.
Are you obligated in Asher Lo Yada both ways?
Obviously.
We did.
That's why people are so into it. Okay. So this is any place that was close enough to Jerusalem that met these criterion. So that place could also read the Megillah on Shushan, because they were considered the suburbs of Jerusalem. Okay. We'll see what is important when we get to the Gemara. So the Gemara continues, and the Gemara says, the Gemara is asking the question, right? From where do we know that a Yom Tov that when Rosh Hashanah fell out on Shabbos, that they only blew the shofar in the Beis Hamikdash and they didn't blow it outside? Or they only blew the shofar in Yerushalayim and they didn't blow it outside of Yerushalayim? How do we know this? So Amar Rabbi Levi Bar Lachma, Rabbi Levi Bar Lachma says, Amar Rabbi Chama, in the name of Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina, Kasuv Echad. We have 2 psukim. Kasuv Echad. One pasuk says, Shabbason Zichron Teruah. Look over to your left, to the left margin, and there you will see Parshas Emor, and the pasuk in Parshas Emor describes the Yomim Tovim. Says the pasuk, Daber el bnei Yisrael lemor, speak to the Jewish people, saying to them, Chodesh Hashvi'i, on the 7th month. We know that Tishrei is the 7th month, counting from Nisan as the 1st month. Chodesh Hashvi'i be'echad lachodesh, on the 1st of the month. Yeh lochem Shabbason, you should have a day of rest. We know this is Rosh Hashanah, right? We should have a day of rest. Zichron Teruah, it should be a Zichron Teruah. What's a Zichron Teruah?
Remembrance.
A remembrance, memorializing, if you will, of the Teruah. A Zichron Teruah. That's one pasuk, says the Gemara, right? Kasuv Echad Omer Shabbason Zichron Teruah. The Kasuv Echad Omer, and another pasuk says Yom Teruah Yeh Lachem. Where's that pasuk? So that's the one right underneath it, which is from Parshas Pinchas. And in Parshas Pinchas, we go through all the karbanos, all the holidays. Anybody have Parshas Pinchas as a bar mitzvah sedra? Right? We go through all of the Musaf karbanos, and it again makes reference to the Musaf karban of Rosh Hashanah. And it says, Uvachodesh Hashvi'i, the 7th month, which is Tishrei, Be'echad lachodesh, on the 1st day of the month, Mikra Kodesh, a holy gathering, Yeh Lochem, Kol Meleches Avodah Lo Sa'asu, you're not supposed to do any work, right? It's Yom Tov. Yom Teruah Yeh Lachem. What does it call it? A Yom Teruah. So wait a second, says the Gemara. We have 2 verses that call Rosh Hashanah 2 different things. One pasuk a Zichron Teruah. One pasuk called a problem. We can answer this. This is an easy one to answer. Kan b'yom tov shechalios b'Shabbos, kan b'yom tov shechalios b'chol. What are we talking about? We're talking about whether or not Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah falls out, the 1st day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos or on Chol. These 2 psukim don't contradict each other. These 2 psukim are dealing with 2 potential scenarios. one scenario where Rosh Hashanah, first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. When the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, it's Zichron Shua. We don't shofar, we remember the shofar. It's Zichron Shua. The week, it's Yom Trua Yelachem. This is what the Gemara says is the source for the belief that when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, as our Mishnah says, outside of Yerushalayim, we didn't blow the shofar. Now,
But you can't infer that from those. Why would you think you then blew it in? You're making assumptions. I mean, usually need a little bit more.
You're right. Arnie is right. But what all the Gemara is saying right now is we have scenario A and we have scenario B. Scenario A, scenario B during the week. I have two things. One that refers to shofar as Zichron Shua, one that refers to shofar as Yom Shua. So how do I resolve these two psukim? They're both talking about the same holiday. So the answer is, when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, that's the pasuk of Zichron Shua. What does it mean, Zichron Shua? What's the implication? The implication is that we're not doing it. We're remembering it, but we're not doing it. Zichron Shua. On the other day, Rosh Hashanah falls out during the week, it's Yom Shua, because we're actually doing it. Now, Arnie's asking the question, what does that have to do with Yerushalayim?
Right.
And Arnie's saying, that might tell me that there's a day where I do blow the shofar and there's a day when I don't blow the shofar. But how does that tell me anything about, where I do it? Like Mishnah coming as an explanation for everything in the Mishnah. It's coming to set the building blocks by saying, number one, we have to distinguish between Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah that falls out during the week. Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos, Zichron Shua, Rosh Hashanah Shua. Good. Now we're going to get to your problem, right? Not a problem, but your question. All right, what's the question? Wait a second. We learn in the Mishnah that you can blow the shofar in the Beis Hamikdash, or even an opinion that you can blow the shofar in Yerushalayim, even on Shabbos, or Dafko, right? So how come?
But Yavna too, no?
No, that was just.
Well, that Yavna was later, right? Yavna was established as a remembrance. Why was what they did? Why was it done that way? So what Arnie is saying is, okay, we have two psukim. One pasuk says Zichron Shua, one pasuk says Yom Shua. They applied it two different times. If that's the case, then either everybody is blowing or nobody's blowing, right? Right? Those are the two possibilities. It's not a day like the Mishnah describes where in some places they're blowing and in some places they're not blowing. So that's what Arnie is asking, why don't we get more? We're going to get more in a second. Okay? So the Gemara.
Good question.
So we spoke about before class, right? Right. So what does the Gemara say? So the Gemara is going to answer. Right. The Gemara is going to answer the question. Right. The Gemara is going to answer the question by trying to explore why this would be. In other words, yes, technically we understand there are two psukim. Okay, we can create two different scenarios to explain these two psukim. But what's the havamina? What's going on? So the Gemara says, Amar Rava. Rava says, what's wrong with blowing shofar on Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos? What's wrong with it?
Why is it close?
Right?
What's wrong?
No, not in the. I'm talking about in general. Before we distinguish Migdash, no Migdash, before we distinguish that, we said when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos, we don't blow the shofar. Why? Zichron Shua. The Gemara is going to try to figure out why.
Music.
Yes.
So, is there any parallel to the fact that when you do them on a Shabbos, you don't sing, but you only sing on a Yom Tov? Is there any? There's no parallel, no whatsoever.
No. That's connected. If you look carefully at Dayaning, you'll notice that between the second to last word and last word of every bracha, every one of the three brachos of Dayaning, There's a whole paragraph. Ask for parnasa and all these kinds of things. On Shabbos, you're not supposed to ask for these things. So what gives us time to do the asking? Right? The singing.
When did
Right?
ayayay start?
What was the quantity? Basically?
363.
Those are the paragraphs that
Yeah,
say to
yeah,
cure
right.
the dreams.
Edward just,
Andrew,
Justinian, right? He banned
What?
that we don't cite, but we look at. It's like if I have good dreams, make
Some people say that it's a hefsek in the bracha. I generally do not say it, but there are plenty of people who do say it. And we know there are plenty of people who do say it because the custom to do however it is, however you sing it, came about in order to give people a chance to go through that paragraph. So on Shabbos, when we don't go through the paragraph because we're not allowed to ask for our own needs, right? So then we don't do the melody because we don't want to give people time to go through the paragraph. That's
I thought it
the
had something to do with musical instruments.
no, actually not, but it's a nice idea. Okay. Okay. So the Gemara. So I'm a Rava.
Looking for help.
I'm a Rava. Rava says, "Imi di oraisa." In other words, we have to figure out. We know why something should be forbidden on Shabbos, right? What's the definition of something? What it's malacha. Okay. In other words, something which is malacha is biblically forbidden to be done on Shabbos. So I'm a Rava. That if this prohibition of blowing the shofar out to blow in the Beis Hamikdash, in other words, right? You're not allowed to do malacha in the Beis Hamikdash. No. Well, you are allowed to do, since the Karbanos had lots of malachos that were associated with them. But the Torah obligated us to bring those Karbanos on Shabbos, right? The Torah didn't obligate us to blow shofar on Shabbos. So, if this prohibition of blowing shofar is biblical, meaning if blowing shofar involves a malacha, so then it should be a malacha for everyone, right? How could they blow in the Beis Hamikdash? Va'od, and the Gemara goes, itztrich kra lemiute, right? That it's not a malacha where we need a pasuk to come along and tell us that we can do it. So, for instance, shechting an animal is a malacha, right? What do we have? We have a pasuk that tells us that on Shabbos, obligation on Shabbos to bring this carbon. Right? We have so in other words, if blowing the show long and permitted, right? Correct, require. Now, in that, there's a lot of discussion about the question which is being asked. It's not really, because Tosfos said, right? What the Gemara said should be just the opposite. You knew that you can't do it. In other words, you can't malacha, ta'asu, nafka. We learn it out from the general prohibition of malacha. So Tosfos is bothered by exactly this. Doesn't mean that if it's a malacha, we need a pasuk to exclude it, or we don't need a pasuk to exclude it, or since showing it, maybe I would think that pasuk that tells me blowing it also comes to tell me that even if it should be blowing it, the Gemara is, right, there are different ways to interpret it. It's not a malacha, that's what we're interested in. And the Gemara is going to say it's not a malacha. The Tana Rebbe Shmuel learned the following. Meleches avoda lo sa'as. Right? This is one of the verses which is telling us that you're not allowed to do malacha on Shabbos. Right? There's another verse as well, different verses, but this one says kol meleches avoda lo sa'as. Yotzisa, says the Gemara, this pasuk comes to include something which is a meleches avoda, and it comes to exclude something which is kiyas shofar or a dias hapas shehi chachma ve'ena malacha. That what is it? Blowing the shofar is not a malacha. It's not a malacha, right? What's the malacha that you think it might be?
Well, making a musical instrument. Making noise.
You're allowed to do that.
Blowing the shofar involves taking this instrument, putting it to your lip.
Same 39. Because you might fix it. That's a good story.
It's not one of the 39 malachos. Right? They're not, right? It's not one of the 39 malachos. It's not a malacha, right? Why today don't we use musical instruments? Correct.
I was there.
Right. You heard the class, right? Today we don't use musical instruments.
Because if it breaks, you might fix it. And fixing it was assembling something, and that's what I'm gonna allow.
Just don't fix it, right? Can't go horse.
Okay, but that's that's the gazelle.
Yeah, but
Why don't fix it.
You're a concert violinist, and you're playing your violin on Shabbos, right?
On the string breaks.
Spring breaks.
You're gonna
Fix it tomorrow.
Yes.
So it seems that the way in
Well,
which
we don't trust each other to.
it seems that the way in which human nature works is that if you're a musician and you are so invested in your music that you will be so distraught that your instrument has broken that you will, without thinking, you go to fix your
Bringing a fence, I mean, you basically go to a fence.
Yes, that's exactly. You're right.
Why
can't we just say if it breaks, we fix it? And you just, it's not that difficult. There's a lot of
we don't need to
can't
say
do.
that. That's already true.
No, in
You're
other
not
words,
allowed to
if it
fix
breaks, you're not allowed to fix it.
That's
Clear.
Right.
That's
That's
a
that
biblical
includes,
point.
You just say you can play your instrument.
With human nature, and they understood that if we said to you, you can play your instrument, but if it breaks, you're not allowed to fix it. Dangerously close to fixing a musical instrument. In other words, people get so involved that it's almost like second thought.
But you can say also like with an A-room, they
Like without a second thought.
they kind of conceive you can't carry it. You conceive an A-room, so people could carry. Now people think like, oh, maybe I can carry.
A lot of
it
people don't
a little bit
believe in
further. So it's sort of, you know what I'm saying?
That's why you need a bezdin to make these kinds of declarations, because imagine sat down and came up with a list of things. Could you imagine what we would come up with? You need
Is the violin most of them? The violin itself.
So that was
person freaking
well, Maybe.
Is that the medical definition?
I thought the shuffle was the carrot. I thought the
Because it wasn't used,
Right.
you were allowed to.
I understand.
The shuffle wasn't gonna break, and I understand.
But
You can't carry it.
Well, let me ask you, that's the logic. You shouldn't be able to wear shoes with laces.
Allowed to.
Because what if you wear your shoes with laces and it unties and you go tie it.
Allowed to tie your shoe.
So it's a lace drape.
So?
The normal thing is to fix the lace when it breaks. You can't do
Fix the lace that breaks.
I never thought about it like that.
Maybe
I'm there a lot where you use it, you might fix it, or riding a horse because you might take the branch.
You might break the branch.
The same like strap.
Meaning that it's very easy to take the logic, the way that we understand
And
it,
expand.
and to expand it and apply it to a million things. But the rabbis chose not to do that. The rabbis chose not to expand it to a million things because they had a different perspective on human nature. Maybe it's changed. And therefore, even if, let's say today things have changed, right? And the Bezdin that decreed X today, if they were around, they would not have done it. But the bottom line is they're not around. So since they're not around, we are stuck with X until we have a credible group that can change X, right? That's what it means.
Nobody ever tried to establish.
Yes, they did.
We used a high level.
Tried that.
Yes. Benita Sanhedrin, that's what we spoke about earlier.
Those rabbinical fences
So Jeff is right. All of these rabbinic laws are fences to prevent us from violating one of the malachos on Shabbos. That's what they are. They're fences to prevent us from violating one of the malachos on Shabbos. So whatever it is, right? Whatever is set up as a fence, a rabbinic prohibition. So muktzah, for instance. Muktzah is a rabbinic prohibition. Right? Why was muktzah instituted? In order to make sure that we don't use a particular thing for malacha purposes. Whether it's your cell phone is muktzah, so that will hopefully prevent you from using it. If you can't move it, then you're not going to come to use it. Right? That's something whose use would involve a violation of Shabbos, has these rabbinic prohibitions built around it. Okay?
What was the 1990
I don't remember offhand,
Now you
but you could look it up.
Was it like on high levels, or is it
Thank
like
you.
some kind of
No, it was not.
crackpot? I mean, have high levels, pursued it?
Back in the days of the Mechaber of Yosef Karo, there was an attempt for it as well. There's a whole history of attempts to recreate this.
You should get
That's always an
I have enough problems finishing the Gemara. Okay.
You got a better shot.
Right. So what do we say? So we say Yotzisa Tikia Shofar or Dias Has Shehi Chachma. These two things are Chachma and not Malacha. What does it mean? They're Chachma means you have to have a skill to be able to do them. The average person can blow into a shofar. Anybody can basically blow into a shofar. But in order to produce the sounds the way that they need to be produced, you need to have someone who has that chachma, has that wisdom, that experience, that knowledge, that teaching to know how to do it. Additionally, Ridias Hapas. What is Ridias Hapas? There's no such thing that today, right? There was a communal oven, right? And they used to bake the bread. Part of the way they bread is that they put the bread up against the wall of the oven. And they had to be able to get the bread off the wall of the oven without, right? Because you needed a whole loaf. They didn't have pan bread from the oven, which was a chachma. It wasn't a malacha. There was nothing that was intrinsically wrong with it. It was a chachma. It wasn't a malacha. The same thing by shofar. Shofar is a malacha. It's a chachma. So if that's the case, what's our question? Why can't we blow it when the first day of Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos? That's
anything in this particular skill of chachma. So why is a chachma a distinguishing feature? Grinding the legs.
if something is not prohibited as a malacha, and it has a nature, it requires a particular skill.
A learned trade, a knowledge.
So it's a chachma.
Could you translate chachma into the word talent?
Talent, experience, knowledge.
Or specific to that task?
Look, it's like you're a bar mitzvah teacher, right? Can anybody teach bar mitzvah lessons? No, they can't. We know they can't, right? In other words, you can teach bar mitzvah lessons because you've worked hard at it, you've practiced it, you have the experience of teaching. It works. Mm-hmm. But if I take, Chaim Yankel off the street and say, teach this boy a bar mitzvah lesson, teach him how to read his parsha, Chaim Yankel could wind up killing the kid, right? He doesn't have the experience, he doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't know how to teach it, you need to have all of those things. That's what makes it up. That's what makes something up. No, we didn't say baking bread on Shabbos. We said removing it from the oven on Shabbos. Removing it from the oven on Shabbos. Right? Removing it from the oven on Shabbos.
They took the.
It was already baked.
I'm not seeing it.
Right.
Used to have it in.
Okay. So what's the issue then? So the Gemara now goes on. The Gemara says as follows. Right? It's a chachma. It's not a malacha. Ela amar Rava. So Rava then has to come to the conclusion to say midioraisa mishra shari, that from a biblical perspective, blowing shofar is permissible on Rosh Hashanah that falls out on Shabbos. There's no biblical prohibition. All right. However, the Rabbanan who the Gazor Bey, the rabbis are the ones who came and made all the trouble. Were the ones who came along and made the prohibition. Kidu Rabba, as Rabba said, the Amar Rabba, chayev to hear shofar, right? It's Kiri knows how to. The rabbis yado, perhaps you'll take the shofar. V'yelech eitzel habaki lilmod, and what will you do? You'll go to the either to learn yourself, while it almost Gemara say, why didn't Rabba legislate? You'll wind up going Mauritius. Why do you say you'll go from one year? I point out that the reason why is because leaving something. If you've ever been in a place where there is Shabbos, sure that you don't have anything, because the door is the reminder that you're leaving a domain. So so that would stop. But you might be tempted to take that shofar and to just walk with it without thinking, because you're in the Rosh Hashanah without walk with it. Hold on a second. Let me just finish. Get to the two spots.
Okay.
Okay. And says the Gemara, V'hainu taima de lulav, v'hainu tama de Megillah. This is the reason why we don't take a lulav on Shabbos, and this is the reason why we don't read Megillah on Shabbos. We push off Purim. Okay, now, so Ed is asking the question, why didn't they make that gezerah in the Beis Hamikdash? Right? In other words, if it's a gezerah, isn't it a gezerah for everybody? Why did they not make the gezerah in the Beis Hamikdash?
Wasn't that or issued after the destruction of the base on that? That's when the rabbi it came into
No,
existence.
it's a Mishnah.
That were prevalent in the plenty. You can't blow the you might come to carry. Because there's enough people who are in the kind of roles where they have a responsibility to ensure that this doesn't happen. So for instance, we have a principle that ein shvus b'mikdash. Any rabbinic prohibition is not in place in the Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is exempt from it. The Kohanim are exempt from it. Why? Because the Kohanim are the reason. They're very careful about what they do. And since they're very careful about what they do, they don't need these gezerot. Right? So that's what we're saying. In Yerushalayim, in the Beis Hamikdash, this rabbinic prohibition was not enforced.
So you say that the weren't carrying it, or?
No,
I'm saying they might become to carry. So there were enough.
You can have those in the school.
People have them at home.
It's the same slippery slope.
The same principle, the same answer as before applies here also. In other words, you could make this gezerah with regard to almost anything. Don't put a talus on Shabbos because you might come to carry a talus. Right? You know, specific declarations. Right, and Bezdin, listen, remember, Bezdin's goal was not to deprive us of doing mitzvahs. But Bezdin's to allow us to do mitzvahs.
But they're installing shofar because you may go to an expert to try to learn how to do it. So how's that relevant to the lulav or Megillah? Because it's sort of like it's going to take this way.
So Arnie is asking a question about Megillah, but a good question about lulav. And Hashem will start with that next week. Okay? Thank you all.